What is happening? And is it worth freaking out over? So we've just seen the VIX hit its highest level since the pandemic market crash in 2020. And that was caused by a profound black swan event, the kind of thing that just doesn't normally happen. Now the VIX, that's a volatility index that tracks fear and greed in the stock market. Basically, it tells you how volatile things are. So a high number means people think the sky is falling. And this morning we saw just that. That happened as just about every market sold off. And briefly, that included precious metals. Now look, that does not mean gold or silver crashed, not based on anything specific to either metal, and regardless, they didn't crash at all. Gold dropped 3.2% for a moment. So I figured we'd take a minute to cover what's actually happening, look at how it affects us, and why or if it even matters. Now normally, I try to wait a hot minute if whatever's happening seems like it's going to reverse course, and it seemed like it was going to this morning. But about 50% of the precious metals videos that hit the timeline seem to cover some initial move up or down, just talking in general. Now, nothing ties those videos to the wider implication, and it's a little bit frustrating, and I try not to add to that. Now step back a little bit. What's actually happening today is more about what's happening with the VIX and the wider sell-off. It's not really indicative of what's happening with metals. Now, we might have seen some profit taking, people selling gold near the all-time high. We might have seen traders trying to cover losses in other markets, but we were not seeing an alarming sell-off of gold, at least not based on any negative catalyst for gold itself. The same thing goes for silver. And we can see this only a few hours later. Gold price at the time of this video has already reclaimed 1.5% of the 3.2% drop. So we could jump up and down. We could say gold dropped 3%, but only if we're calling the play-by-play, minute by minute, which I can see on the YouTube timeline, some of us are. Now we just saw gold hit a $2,500 intraday price. That's a new all-time high. The close was more like $24.75, but if we were trying to accurately describe gold's performance, we certainly wouldn't say that it's crashing. We certainly wouldn't say what's happening today is like what happened in 2020. Now, the Dow had some trouble. It dropped 1,000 points. S&P 500 lost 3%. But like I mentioned when we started out, the VIX spiked to a crazy level, something we haven't seen since the pandemic crash, and that means the market is incredibly volatile, and it probably also means most of this will reverse. So what's the takeaway? What's actually newsworthy about all of this? Well, it's that we went from being something like 95% sure that the Fed would cut rates in September, 6% hoping they'd cut in August, to screaming that the Fed didn't cut soon enough. Now, sometimes you have to wonder if the market isn't just throwing a fit. Maybe we should just take a breath, head off, count to 10, and then check back in. Of course, if you aren't capitalizing on a drop like this, I mean, Bitcoin dropped 25%. If you're a Bitcoin fan, I'm guessing you were scrambling to buy. The market might be a little bit like that too with gold. You really only had about an hour or two that you would have been able to catch that kind of dip. So if you're not waiting for something like this, it probably isn't a big implication. We're back above $2,400, so if you blinked, you might have missed this one. Now, something that I want to be clear on here, I just made a video about an analyst suggesting that gold could be near the high for the cycle. Silver could have already hit it. Now, that wasn't my analysis to begin with, but this is not that kind of drop. The part that I found interesting was simply that the person thought investors may have already priced in the future effects of a rate cut. Well, that is not what we saw today. This was a simple case of lots of factors spilling over and pulling a lot of markets down. Probably also a case with a strong chance of a reversal, but what do I know? So we probably don't need to take this much further. My point here is that if you think something alarming is happening with gold or silver, I would say hold up. What's actually happening is not much. Something happened elsewhere, and the impact on metals was actually extremely limited, 1.5%, while Bitcoin lost 25%. So if you were wondering what the heck just happened to gold and silver, well, that's about it. Not much. Let's call it good there. Let us know if you caught the dip or you just didn't get out of bed for it. And then while you're in the comments, be sure to hit that like button if you found any of this interesting. Be sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you want to hear more on the topic. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.